Are propane appliances kind of dying out of the RV industry? And is this a good time for you to consider getting into an RV purchase, either new or used? I'm going to take some dive through some things like that and plenty more this week on this month's RV industry update with my little chubby dad bod out here in my 67-degree weather enjoying it. Although it's going to be 106 and 9,000% humidity tomorrow, and I'll probably die, probably. But in the meantime, we're going to do some diving through a bunch of things to see, what factors are out there in the industry, what might you expect over Labor Day, what are we going to be taking a look at in terms of general pricing trends and fuel prices and all kinds of things. And if you appreciate what we're doing here for you, as always, I really appreciate it if you hit that like button, subscribe to our videos, and as we go, please leave any kind of comments, good, bad, or ugly, that you're thinking about, as long as we can maintain some decent use of language. And let's hear your thoughts as we go. And maybe we'll compare some notes and meet together in the comment section and see what we can come up with together. So kicking us off here, let's get some of the scary stuff out of the way. The world changes. That does happen. But a major shift seems to be kind of happening very quickly in the RV industry here. An industry that for the longest time, there were certain things that you could always expect and rely and depend upon, like a propane cooker in a camper or something like that. Or the fact that your fridge could run on propane if need be, especially handy for those boondocking type folks. And I mentioned 3 or 4 months ago how your favorite refrigerator might be vanishing, and very quickly a lot of that came to pass. And there is a sudden spike away from a lot of propane appliances in the RV industry from what I'm seeing from the upcoming 2024s. Now, for clarity, I'm not saying there are no more propane appliances in the RV industry for 2024. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. But I have noticed a major shift. First of all, gas electric refrigerators, those have seen a dramatic decrease, largely due to supplier base. There's really only about 2 major suppliers of those things to the RV industry, one of which has ended their North American production, which has caused their pricing and their options to become very limited, and basically didn't work for what a lot of RV production was. And the other one said, well, now that we have kind of a captive North American market, we are going to increase our pricing. So a lot of RV manufacturers just going, guess what? We have 12-volt refrigerators now, exclusively. Very true in a lot of travel trailers, and there are still some exceptions, some little pockets here and there. So if you're a boondock enthusiast and you're like, absolutely not, I absolutely will not take a 12-volt fridge and I refuse to consider anything else, there are still some RV brands out there that will provide you with that propane power solution to keep your fridge running while you are off grid, away from the parks, don't want to run a generator, all that kind of stuff. But the fact is, very few two-way refrigerators are really becoming available, and brands that always offered an A/B option, like maybe either all electric or propane electric or something like that, are basically a ton of those suppliers are now exclusively 12-volt refrigerators. And I have been recording so many new 24s, and I've seen that 100 times, where really it's now the exception, not the rule, if a manufacturer does have a propane option. But it's not just refrigerators that are changing. I am seeing an absolute ton of brands moving away from propane ovens. Now, this seems to be a trend more in the price-sensitive, like stick and tin travel trailer market, because if you look at individual appliance costs on a bill of materials sheet, also known as a BOM in the RV industry, that oven is one of the single most expensive objects. So by immediately deleting that oven, you have immediately reduced the price of your RV, and you're seeing a lot more of these convection microwaves, sometimes with the word air fryer on it, which I don't know that everybody necessarily realizes are essentially the same thing, by the way. Some people are like, I don't want a convection, but I'll take an air fryer. Okay, they're the same thing, but okay. There are a lot of manufacturers moving away from that. Now, that is not nearly as prevalent as I have seen on the refrigerator front. Again, 12-volt fridges, until you get into big giant fifth wheels in which residential refrigeration can become somewhat more viable. The thing of like certain brands like for instance, Jayco and Keystone, they seem to be keeping their ovens, but like Cherokee, Winnebago, Grand Design, in their stick-built units, they are moving away from their ovens, and there are some interesting trends there. There are also some interesting trends in how going all electric on an RV can actually help create a very cost-effective RV, and the Cherokee RV group is actually kind of flirting with that a little bit in their little new Wolf Den, their little price-sensitive series that you're going to see coming out here on the channel, where they're making small, all-electric, zero propane system RVs. And as a result, you're seeing prices on these things that I haven't seen since like 2018 for a brand new RV. But it also means you're tethered to a park, or you require a generator, and they're not going to be necessarily boondock off-grid friendly. And different companies are all kind of trying to navigate these sort of very price-sensitive waters that we haven't seen in a long time in different ways. So there's still a lot of options, there's a lot of variety out there, but as this 24 stuff rolls out, you are going to see some very big shifts in the climate in terms of like the appliances that are even being put into RVs. So keep in mind on that and stay tuned as we go, because I'll have plenty of full RV tour updates with those individually showcased for you coming down the line. And with Labor Day fast approaching, if you're camping over Labor Day, expect some, probably expect some neighbors. Over 16 million people have indicated they plan to do some camping just exclusive, like specifically over the Labor Day weekend. That's a big slug of people very, very quickly going camping all at one time. Kind of interesting. It's really sort of signaling almost what I call kind of the fall camping kickoff as the kids kind of go back to school. Usually that's a time of year where you see a dramatic decline in the number of people RVing. However, fueled potentially by people who are doing remote travel, remote working, you know what I mean, remote working and traveling, things like that, we are actually projecting a record number of fall RVers traveling this year, with millennials actually representing about 40% of that. Is by far the single largest like age bracket chunk of that. It really kind of goes hand in hand with something we're going to talk about later, I think, where companies are having greater and greater difficulty getting people to return to a more traditional office atmosphere. Now, kind of in that kind of, you know, big traveling stats and news thing, the national parks just released some stats here, totaling up all their stats from last year in the 2022 calendar year. Saw a record number of people visiting our national parks and record spending. Over $50 billion spent in either at or around the national parks for folks who, you know, the business related to like being in and or around those park areas there, helping support over 400,000 jobs. So again, a lot of people hear that like we're about to talk about some stats, how RV production is in a major decline. No, okay, but that doesn't mean that the RV lifestyle and all the people out there are also in a major decline. As far as anyone can see, more people camping now than ever, with no sign of that changing anytime soon. What does that mean in terms of campground congestion? Well, we'll touch on that in just a little bit here. But first, let's dive into those kind of stats. This is the part that the Count from Sesame Street would like, when you get to see all the numbers. He seems to like numbers. I asked my friend one time, you know, who's your favorite vampire? And he said the one from Sesame Street. And I was like, that doesn't count. And he says, I assure you that he does. Anyway, enough Sesame Street jokes. First of all, taking a look at wholesale shipments, also known as new RV production. No surprise here to anybody that these stats continue to decline, but if you look at last year versus this year's numbers, you see how they're, you know, that pandemic-infused production period is really beginning to fizzle out, where we're seeing that almost kind of more consistent normalcy trend there. I was a little surprised at how much these stats had dropped off for this month, and keep in mind the charts and the numbers that you're looking at in this are always like a month or two behind real time, because that's the fastest that data can be collected essentially. But as I kind of thought about it, I kind of looked at what was happening here, and you know, these are July stats that you're looking at, and it's now September as this comes out. Well, September is really when the big wave of true full 24s are out. Well, I think what was happening is a lot of dealerships had a chunk of aged inventory on their lots that they were borderline frantically trying to get rid of, for lack of a better way to say it. And I don't think they wanted to park a bunch of brand new stuff on top of it, which makes their already aged stuff look already even ageder, basically. So one thing that really shocked me looking at this, though, was the folding camper market, aka pop-ups. By far down the biggest chunk. It does not seem like that's a segment where dealers are really interested in playing in right now, and I'm sort of wondering, is that a symptom and a reflection of the consumer's lack of interest in that segment, or is it something where I'm wondering if dealerships who are already working on depleted margins currently, as they're frantically trying to bail out of old inventory, pop-ups are not a real big dollar generator, you know? So maybe they just didn't need another thing to occupy some time without generating a lot of dollars. I'm not sure on that. And I'd be kind of curious to know, you know, your insights on that if you're kind of curious about anything. But there's really two sides to this story, and I talk about this in a lot of my updates. I get it. You'll see somebody put out this report, the industry's down 50%. Okay. What's built and what's sold are two different things. We've talked about that a bunch of times. And looking at retail registrations, aka things actually sold, for 4 months in a row, sales have significantly outpaced production. It really is a tale of two cities here. Overall, both stats are down. No question about that. I've never denied that or tried to hide that or smokescreen it or anything. Overall, RV production is currently down about 47%, which is a little bit versus last year, which is a little bit of a slimmer margin from, like, we'd been seeing like 52, 49%, we're at 47%. So again, some of those bars are kind of equalizing a little bit. But RV sales overall seems to be off about 24% from last year, which obviously still a chunk off. But I think a lot of that is kind of represented by, you know, various economic factors and fuel prices and things that are happening there. And also, I think that as dealerships have just really been worked and focused on getting off the stuff that might be in stock, that some of which is getting old, because the older a piece of inventory gets, the more it costs the dealership. And I don't just mean the money they have to give up to try to entice you to buy it. There's, you know, financing curtailments and all kinds of things that go into that, where not selling that unit becomes very expensive. It's not just like it sits there and then we finally make money when it sells. It costs all the time in the meantime. But I think that 24% sales wouldn't be quite that high of a percentage off if inventory would have been rotated a little more cleanly, because I think that there's a lot of things that people would like to buy, but dealerships just aren't buying right now because they're not buying new stuff until they get old stuff out. And I think that we're kind of in that break point, balance point, where it's starting to be in the heal side instead of the hurt side of things. And I think that will be something that will actually fuel and increase overall sales coming into next year. But first, something I've never done before. We have a large number of Canadian folks who watch this channel right here, and it kind of made me wonder, how do the stats kind of boil down up in the Canadian market? I'm probably not going to make a regular diet out of this, and since the majority of our viewers are from the United States of America, I'm going to make this a little bit brief. I really expected kind of similar trends here, but what was surprising to me was how the Canadian stats were more exaggerated in terms of their spikes. So like their, our towable RV market production is down about 50%. Theirs is down a little bit over 60%, really. And, our motorized market versus theirs, like the number of shipments in terms of motorized moving up into Canada right now is dramatically higher than it was. Now, I think part of that was there was a chunk of time last year where basically the people who were licensed and qualified to import and bring those things into Canada, they just weren't available. They just weren't around. So I think the Canadian market got really starved on motorized stuff last year. And again, please leave me some comments, those of you up there who could provide some better insights. And I think that has healed itself over time. So we're seeing maybe a more normalized flow of motorhomes moving up into Canada that we hadn't seen before. But I thought it was interesting just taking a look at our very close neighbor and how the numbers really boiled down more differently than I expected. So that's kind of the finger on the pulse of the new RV market right now. We're going to talk more about some 24 stuff in just a minute, but first, a look at the used RV market here. Beginning with the towable segment. Overall, wholesale auction volume, which is what these stats represent here, wholesale auction volume was up significantly from the previous months. And what I'm interpreting that to be is, again, with 2024 is basically now in full swing, and dealerships having aged inventory, I think that there were some dealerships who just kind of looked at some of their oldest stuff and said, we have to get anything over, I'm going to say, like, you know, anything over 9 months, just flush it. It has to get out of here. And I think some of that stuff is getting sent across the auction block, and it's creating some opportunities there. The trick is, a lot of this stuff, I was shocked at how young it was. The average towable age coming across those wholesale auction blocks this past month was 2019. That feels very young to me. It's you know, it's within 5 years of the current model year, which actually that's an interesting thing. With credit pending approval, if the RV that you're looking at is used, but within 5 model years of current, so like the 24s are right now, so like 2019 and newer, may still qualify for same as new financing. And there's a lot of different scenarios and things that go into that, so it's not a guarantee. It's something that a lender may offer. But if what you're looking for is that bang for your buck kind of thing, you can get, you know, the greatest ratio of new RV to used price tag in that 2019 to 2020 kind of model year range and ratio, assuming, again, you have the credit factors to kind of help support that. So that's a thing to look for. Overall, the overall values across the auction block were also up in the towable market by about 17%, which is a pretty big clip. But I think it's because there was a slug of later model stuff put in there, and the newer something is, and typically the more money it tends to command. Shifting over into the motorized used RV market a little bit, look at this chart, and every other month it's this up, down, yo-yo kind of thing happening here. And the motorized market has again continued this up-down trend with the last month's stats jumping back up again. Even though the overall, it was interesting. I don't know. I can't wrap my head around that. Can anybody rationalize the stats of why the used motorized market values constantly spike up and down like that? Like, it seems like it's become so consistent that it's almost old faithful reliable. And I look at various market factors and stuff, and I don't know that I necessarily identify a trend that contributes to that. It's just a very interesting kind of phenomenon that I'm seeing. And again, just like right now, I won't claim to have all the answers. I don't know everything. I'm not an authority. I'm just like farmers. I know a thing or two because I've seen a thing or two. I'm an idiot who's been in it for a minute. And kind of completing the value trend trifecta that I've sort of made a standard bearing point in these RV update videos, looking at fuel trends. I'm seeing some, like, I don't know how to say, like, mixed messages on this front, where anything that I really read, they're like, oh, there's relief at the gas pumps right now. But then I look at the chart over time, I ain't seeing it. I ain't seeing necessarily that relief. What I kind of see is that fuel prices were being a little bit consistent, and then as of about the 4th of July, about that holiday right there, pricing shot up a chunk. And okay, sure, maybe it's a couple cents per gallon off now what it was last week, at least at the time I'm recording this. Obviously that's volatile information, so take that with a grain of salt. But looking at the chart over time, I don't really see where we're seeing a whole lot of relief. And my fear, looking at a lot of the things that are being talked about, like consumption versus replenishment, we're still kind of outpacing things in that regard, and that doesn't tend to be a factor that'll result in lower fuel costs. There's also talks about some various big storms that may provide some impacts on things, and like Labor Day travel. You know, if we see another jump related from Labor Day travel like we saw 4th of July travel, we're certainly not going to see any relief at the pump. And man, you know, taking a look at this, you know, the map of the United States, where the states in red are above average, the states in blue are below average in cost and pricing. It is, I tell you, I feel for some of the folks who are in those more expensive per gallon areas. I'm kind of curious. Leave me a note. Let me know where you're from and what are the highest and lowest prices at the pump you've seen this year. I'd be very curious to see that. But I've mentioned a few times that the 2024s are basically in full production. Like, if you order an RV today, it's a 24. Absolutely no question about that. Pretty much anything that's in production right now is an updated 24 to some degree. Some manufacturers still have a couple things to get kind of finished up by the end of September, but basically by the end of this month, everything will be a full tilt updated 24 that is going to see any level of updates. And along with that, I kind of want to give you some insights into what you can expect to see in, say, like the RV review side of this channel that, you know, comprises the majority of our content. Because right now you've still seen a bunch of 2023 stuff. I've had some 24 sneak peeks come out, but I had a huge slug of 2023 content done to give me a buffer so I could do nothing the entire month of August except run the camera and record stuff. I think I'll have captured about 100 new RV videos by the end of the month of August that I now have to go through and get edited, processed, and posted out for you. So I have been a bit of a busy bee, and I apologize if I've been a little slow and slightly lax on getting through the comment section like I normally do, but trust me, I have been working to the point that I dealt with some heat exhaustion for a couple days out here in these things. But that's all the thing that that's what I do. That's what I signed up for. That's fine. What I want to try to do real quick, though, is give you some insights as to some things that are coming. Like, I am seeing more new floor plans this year than I think I've ever seen in any one single year before. I think it's because for the last couple of years during the pandemic panic production period, manufacturers could barely build what was even in their catalog. In fact, some manufacturers had, say, like a 90-unit catalog that they narrowed down to like a 15-unit catalog and got that narrow and focused and specific on it because it's the only way that they could even hope to increase their volume production. Fewer models means more standardization. Repetition means quicker production, in case you were curious as to how that math worked out. But now, as we've talked about, when RV production is down about 50%, they got time. They got time to do things, and just because they haven't been making new models doesn't mean they weren't thinking of new models. And we're suddenly seeing brands that maybe had 1, 2 new floor plans per year come out with like 6, 7, 8 new floor plans, you know. So there's a lot happening in that regard out there. So if you want to see the new floor plans, make sure you hit that subscribe button, catch all those fun, exciting things coming out. But also, new features, twists, tweaks, and updates to existing things. Like I talked about, you know, there is, in a sense, a limitation of refrigerators, and some manufacturers are going different directions with appliances. Like, some are doing ovens, some are not. Some are doing air fryers, some are not. Some are going all electric, and some are like, that's a bad idea. And we're in like this little kind of branch period where things are about to maybe split off a couple different directions in the RV industry, and I think I'm not really sure which way it's going to go. You are also seeing more and more brands come out with something in the way of a more price aggressive product, whether they build it from the ground level or take things out of an existing thing and call it the new, whatever, less expensive, cheap series you like to put in there, whatever word you want to apply to it. Select series. You're going to see a lot of these new little budget series coming out this year as well. There's also a trend not necessarily specifically related to RV manufacturers, but I feel a potentially concerning trend being introduced into RV sales that you need to know about. And I want to be delicate in how I approach this, because the goal is to do nothing more than inform potential consumers out there, not to be seen as like I'm criticizing someone else and trying to poison the waters. Because, hey, let's be fair. Let me start by saying this. We're not perfect either. Like, we have recognized there's a chunk, certain aspects of our RV service side of things we are actively working on improving. We kind of talked about that at our Anderson, Indiana store grand opening, and some things where we're basically inviting people to work with us to find how we can shorten RV repair turnaround times that we don't like right now. You know, we're not perfect either, and we make mistakes too. But I I don't think it's really for a lack of trying out of process. But there is this concerning trend I'm seeing of, for lack of a better way to say it, what I'm going to personally call pretend factory direct RV dealerships opening up, where, you know, there have been these places that'll call themselves wholesalers or something like that, and they try to provide the sort of suggestion that they're providing like factory direct pricing, but they're a dealership. You know, they pay the same invoice that we do. They're just trying to kind of be a little less obvious about it, I suppose. But it's kind of gone another step, and it's evolved to a point here that I feel I need to at least once put out just like, here's what you're really looking at. I'm not saying these are bad places or bad people work there or anything like that, but there are some stores opening up, like what's behind, there's a Jayco behind me. I'm just going to use this as an example. There are some RV dealership stores opening up called like Jayco RV of wherever, or Keystone RV of wherever. These are not factory direct outlets. It is a dealership that they obviously couldn't do this without blessing, able to use the manufacturer's name as the name of the store and the region. So the only thing I want you to take away from this, I'm not saying that they're bad people or it's bad practice or anything like that. I just want you to be aware, because I know this industry and I know how things are going to be panned out, and if somebody feels they have an edge and they can turn a screw just a little bit to gain an edge, they're going to. And I get that that's business, but not when it's used to deceive a consumer. Consumers are going to be told that we have some kind of special deal here because they have some sort of factory direct arrangement, because look at the sign out front, you know. It is not a thing that exists. If you go to a place like this, and even if it's only one brand of RV park there, that's a dealership. There's no special magic invoice edge that's happening like you're cutting out some kind of dealership middleman right there. You know, it's not like an RV Tesla store. There are direct companies, like the way that Lazy Days Motorhomes was a literal factory direct outlet. But you go to a place like this, you see a bunch of trailers parked around, that's a common dealership with normal RV markups, margins, and things like that. I would just simply say expect a normal experience there, and just be careful of the way it's presented to you, and then decide if that sits well with you or not. And then as a consumer, you decide where you take your business or not. And that's the freedom that we all have. And just so you know, I'm trying to play fair ball here. I want to give a very well-deserved tip of the cap to campers in RV. And this is going to probably come as a surprise to me that I'm giving some major kudos to a completely different, literal direct market competitor to Bish's RV that I actively represent. But over the last 2 years, they have donated over $700,000 to these care camps, and anything related to kids instantly hits me in that soft spot. But these care camps are designed to offer kids with cancer the ability to go to these medically assisted and monitored, like, summer camps where they get to go out and enjoy nature and make friendships and kids can't, I get emotional. They get to just go out and feel normal for a summer, you know. And $700,000 is a very significant total donation. It's been, you know, through several different charity drives and like voluntary, like, employee deductions and things like that. But that is an absolutely awesome accomplishment, and you have all my respect in the world for doing that. So again, tip of the hat to you for a little sacrifice on your part that ends up being a big benefit for some kids out there that are dealing with some of the worst things that kids should never have to deal with. That is very cool, and I hope to stumble into more stories like this, and I don't care who is the one offering, I will broadcast that out there, because people deserve to know that they're doing it. And another segment that's kind of become a little bit of a recurring thing here is some manufacturing news. Again, the goal here is to kind of help you understand, like, what different manufacturers are sort of, going through and what might be happening with them down the line. So first of all, Alliance RV recently announced a potentially major long-term expansion. They just acquired enough acreage to potentially expand their existing production by about 50%. So this I think also helps squash around the Michiana area. It's just a constant chatty Cathy rumor mill, basically. And there have been a lot of people who have been trying to throw rumors around that somehow like Alliance was like financially unstable or anything, and it's just not true. Some interesting thing, Alliance being one of the only independent manufacturers of any major significance, like I think 1 out of every 16 or 17 fifth wheels sold now is an Alliance. That's kind of a cool accomplishment if you think about it. They're cracking into travel trailers, and their goal from the start was that every year they would release a new series. They just released their new Delta trailer series, so this kind of indicates that they are gearing up for their next potential big release. I don't have any details on that. They're still working on getting the rest of their Delta series out, along with some other updates that they have through the rest of their products. But it's a good sign that obviously they're in a good, healthy position. And one of the things that I like to look for is manufacturers in a good, healthy position is someone who's going to be around there to provide good factory aftermarket support. If a manufacturer is kind of on the rocks and they ain't going to be here next year, it gets a lot harder to get parts and service from them, naturally. Another news for expansion here, ATC, the aluminum trailer company, who makes, as the name implies, all like aluminum composite, no wood trailers. I've only been able to review 1 or 2 of those things ever on the history of this channel. They recently announced they're opening a location, a build production facility in Napanee, Indiana. Previously, they were really only kind of made over on the West Coast. Hearing that they're going to be, some opportunities to start doing some eastern side of the country production may really help put them on the map in a far, far greater fashion where more and more people, are aware of what they're doing. KZRV recently announced a new president, Mr. Ryan Jude, and Ryan's a person that I've done business with, several times over the years. What I can tell you is that's good news for the whole KZ division. Wherever Ryan goes, things tend to improve. But you always wonder with new leadership, what kind of changes are you going to see? And one thing I'm glad they didn't change was the way that they're giving back to the community. They recently kind of, for lack of a better way of saying it, re-upped their commitment to their local community, donating 74 packages of essential school supplies to Meadowview Elementary in their local neighborhood right there. And along with each of these was a $200 gift card for the teachers of those classes to be able to go out and get additional supplies through the year. Because anyone who knows a teacher knows how much of their own money out of their pocket they spend. Like a lot of times, if the class had a pizza party, it's almost always the teacher buying that stuff out of their pocket. And, people have told me a couple times, like, I've made a difference in their lives with my work. Teachers, that's a true person who makes a true impact, improvement in a lot of lives. So I thought it was cool to see KZ kind of partnering up with them and continuing with that. Also in manufacturing news, Brinkley RVs continued to expand their, all-star lineup of people joining the company. This ever since way back when, like a year or two ago, when I first mentioned some potential new RV companies coming, and at the time they thought the name was going to be Legacy RV, and then this thing Brinkley RV shows up out of that. They have slowly, steadily acquired some really high-level talent, like recently here, some high-level CFO type people, and like product managers and designers, which kind of indicates to me that they are now gearing up to maybe expand their lineup. And there have been some rumors that we may see some travel trailers from Brinkley, maybe some first sneak peeks by the end of this year, maybe beginning of next. And it looks like they might be putting the people in places to maybe start seeing some of that happen. So stay tuned and keep an eye on them. One last thing here, kind of an interesting note, probably a brand a lot of people aren't really well aware of, but Oliver Trailers, who make they kind of like called egg campers, like all fiberglass body shell campers. Basically, a family-owned outfit for about 18 years has decided to establish an actual dealer network rather than be a factory direct kind of solution. I don't really have any other insight on that. I don't know. I'm estimating we probably won't be carrying any of those. I don't know. I could be totally wrong. I stumbled into that and thought, hey, that's kind of an interesting thing. I think I'll share it. And I did. But with all these people making all these RVs and all these people buying these RVs and taking them all these places, like where is there anywhere left to go camping, basically? And I've talked in several previous installments of this series how, you know, it takes a long time to like build an RV park. And it almost seems like we're on this cusp of this wave of when a lot of people all recognize, ooh, buddy, there's not enough RV parks out there. We could make some money if we opened one. Well, it takes a couple years to really get that up to swing, and we're seeing that wave of all that production come out. So a couple kind of examples up here, just some samples that I stumbled into with some very rudimentary searching where there are hundreds and hundreds of new sites opening. But there have also been a couple places that have gone through some major renovations that also went through some major price changes along the way. So keep in mind, more places to camp doesn't necessarily mean cheaper places to camp, just because the amount of people still looking for sites is still greatly outweighing the number of sites that are available, which is fueling more boondock production, which is fueling more solar stuff. You know, there's always two sides of the equation. There's never just one way to go camping. But thankfully, it does look like we are beginning to start seeing a little bit of relief when it comes to that campground congestion pressure, although we got a long ways to go. And finally, I'm a person who has always worn a lot of different hats, but you might have noticed that today's actual hat was a little bit different. At your request, Nerd Merch is finally here, and it is finally available. You may have seen where I've put a couple different posts about it up here on the channel. I'm not going to be one of these people, like, I'm not trying to be Kanye and selling you Yeezys or anything over here. It's just going to be one of those things where I'm going to have a link in the video description of the videos. If it's something you want to investigate, cool. If not, no big deal. No worries. I'm not going to suddenly become like a guy who pushes his stickers and his keychain type things. That's not what this channel is going to start becoming. Like, I've never done like real big sponsored content. I don't want this channel to ever come off as like just really, you know, looking for that monetization factor. There's nothing wrong with making some money off your work, but that's not the whole goal of what we're doing here. So, you know, it's there. If you like it, you know, put a ring on it, I guess. At your demand, we finally made it happen. And I want a little bit of your help here in the comments section if you're willing. Again, as we've gone through the video today, I hope there have been things that you found beneficial, helpful. If so, I hope you do subscribe or share this video into like your favorite Facebook group or anything like that. But manufacturers have really started asking me a lot, what are people wanting, Josh? What is the phrase and the voice that you're hearing? And there's a lot of voices, certainly. If you could leave me some comments and let me know, like, what is it the industry is just flat missing? Like, example here, like office spaces, solo campers, some of those things that we've talked about previously. Like, what are those areas where it just feels like it's so glaring to you that the RV industry is missing? Leave me some notes in the comments. I'll get those funneled back to people as it seems appropriate. And I can't tell you, I can't guarantee, I promise you that that's going to be the thing that makes it happen. But there have been more than one instance where the comments left on this channel have shaped manufacturers to move different directions and I think be stronger for it. So leave your little comments there, throw your voice out there, and let's see what gets heard. And until next time, thanks for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, have fun, and happy camping, everyone.